Hi, welcome back to Dr. Perkins, the Medical Master, where I teach you the karate skills you need to defeat the terrible problems of anatomy, physiology, and nursing. So what we have right here is we have that neuron we were talking about last time. And so we're trying to figure out, all right, why is it that when this neuron fires on this one, sometimes it makes one fire, sometimes it doesn't make one a fire, and that the effect of this depends on where you fire at. So if you fire over here, it's going to have a different effect than if you fire over here. Over here, it's going to be more powerful than if you fire over here or even here. All right, so what's going on here? These blue dots are going to be sodium. Now, as you can see, there's a lot of sodium on the outside of the cell right here, but not so much on the inside. So I want to get through, but I can't make it through this membrane. The only place I can get through is that ligand-gated channel. But the problem is, stupid channel shot. And so what's going to happen is this neuron fires, my ligand over here is going to bind right here, and now this channel's open. And so diffusion is going to make these sodium diffuse into the center of the cell. And so you can see it's going to start spreading out because there's a lot more sodium on the outside of the cell than the inside. But now that neurotransmitter, that chemical, is all gone. And so this sodium spreads on out, and you can see not really much change. And so that's not going to be enough to trigger this thing. In the meanwhile, what happens is I have pumps inside the cell that constantly pump this sodium out. And so it's going to take a while for the cell to get completely back to where it was before. So if that channel opens again, the effect is going to be more powerful. All right, now what happens if we fire over here? Now, what's going to happen is I'm going to bind to this receptor, and you can see the same thing that happened before is happening, right? The sodium is coming in, but you notice the effect is very, very powerful here on the axon, right here. So the axon is how one neuron talks to the other. And so what happens is you see I got more sodium now on this axon as the sodiums diffuse. Well, what's that going to do? That's going to make the inside of my cell more positive. Why? Because sodium is positive, right? And when the inside of my cell gets more positive, now these voltage-gated sodium channels are opening up. And so now I got a lot of sodium in, and now it's spreading on out. Well, what happens as it spreads out? Well, now this side is positive. And once again, we got the sodium coming in, it's spreading on out right there. And so these voltage-gated sodium channels are continuing to open up and allow the sodium in. And so right here, we're going all the way here to the end of the axon. And so we're trying to get the sodium concentrations roughly equal on the inside of the cell and on the outside of the cell. And because there's a lot more sodium on the outside of the cell than on the inside, all the sodium is going into the cell. And so now, what I'm going to bring this thing to kind of a screeching halt is now the voltage-gated potassium channels open. So the voltage-gated sodium channels have shut, voltage-gated potassium channels have opened, and you can see there's a lot more these red dots on the inside of the cell than on the outside of the cell. And so as the voltage-gated potassium channels open and the potassium leaves, what happens is now the cell's becoming more negative, right? If I lose the positive, I'm going to become more negative. And the cell is already more negative on the inside than the outside because of proteins and other ions. And so this is what's triggering the cell not to fire more. So the voltage-gated sodium has closed, the voltage-gated potassium opens, and so we're getting the cell back to that negative charge. Now, before this makes it all the way over here, something very critical has to happen. These voltage-gated calcium channels open up. Now, there's not a whole lot of calcium on the inside or the outside of the cell, but there's going to be more calcium on the outside of the cell than the inside. And so this calcium is going to come on in here, and it's going to bind. It's going to bind right here to these vesicles. And so now what that's going to do is it's going to cause these vesicles to release their neurotransmitters. And so it's going out here and it's binding to whatever receptors it can find. So now That is what's going on over here, here, and here, that exact process. And so the $1,000,000 question is, what kind of channel are we opening? If we're opening up a sodium channel, once again, it's going to make the inside of the cell want to fire. If it's opening up a leaking-gated potassium channel, right, I'm losing these positive ions, and it's making it kind of like over here, where I've lost my positive charges, so I really don't want to fire anymore. All right, because it's not enough to have positives enter the cell. You have to have enough positives come in to make it more positive than the negatives that are kind of in the cell to begin with, right? And so that's going to be an issue. If I'm losing positives, that's going to be really hard to do. Right? That's the last thing I want to have happen. So anything that opens up potassium channel is going to cause those positives to leak out and this thing not want to fire. What then happens is when this signal reaches over here, right, we got our potassium channels are leaking all out. Our voltage gated calcium channel closes. The calcium gets pumped out of the cell. And so now what happens? Well, we don't want the cell to keep on responding to a message that happened a long time ago. And so we're going to take this neurotransmitter, this chemical that's telling the other cell either to fire or not fire, and we're going to put it back into our little packets right here. That way we turn off the message. It's kind of like reading the newspaper. Oh my goodness, we were attacked by the Japanese. Oh, good gravy. That was 1941. It's a little out of date, right? We got to get rid of that old news. Same idea here. We got to get rid of the old news. And so we're going to break down or get rid of this neurotransmitter, this message that said fire. We got to take it off the receptor and put it away or get rid of it. Right? And so that's what's happening right here in the cell.